11 prows. Treading water that they drowning. My head on a swivel. Yeah. It's only really my surroundings.
Welcome to episode 145 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. Guys, we have that show that we look forward to every single year. You know, this is we're having a guest on today. This is his third appearance. John, this is the one where you get giddy. You know, I know the first time we talked about having this guest on, and I texted you, I was like, hey, this guy's going to come on. You just lost it because this is someone that you respect so much in the industry, and I'm excited for tonight. I can tell you are as well.
Oh, for sure. We definitely get excited about this one. I've gotten to the point now where I'm now kind of inspired by our guests, and I've been learning to watch film. And I think I see things, but I'm kind of waiting for his publication to see, is this guy seeing it too? And I was pretty pumped about what I just saw. So looking forward to breaking it down here tonight. Without
further ado, for third straight year coming on the show, the one, the only, Matt Waldman. How you doing tonight, brother? Like you can see it on our faces. We're excited to chop it up with you tonight.
Well, I'm doing great, and I'm equally excited because it's so much fun to be able to get on the show and folks are like, "Yeah, let's talk about these rookies." And
yes, sir.
And so, look, let's get to it because it's I definitely want to get down and do this, and we'll have a good time.
Yeah. So the rookie scouting profile that you do, that's released April 1st, for the 18th year of publication, man. It is now officially legal, right? It's an adult. You've been doing this for 18 years, which is so awesome. I mean, amazing. How do you feel? We've talked about it a little bit backstage, but I mean, how do you feel each year about the RSP growing? About, we have a lot of people in our Patreon program that are like, oh, Matt Waldman, I'm not sure who, and then we direct them to you and it's like their eyes just open up to a new avenue of football. So talk to us about how you keep it fresh and how it's evolved over the years.
Well, I'm really proud of the fact that when people do see it, that they are shocked, that the eyes go wide and they're like, I had no idea. And I play that up on Twitter a lot, and I use one of my taglines is pleasantly shocking readers since 2006 because I've been able to see that. So I'm really proud of that, and I'm proud of the work that I've been able to do because it's an honest effort at trying to get better every year at what you do by attacking the process of how you evaluate talent with how you define things that you're looking at. How to put it in writing so that it's something that you can work at, and how to find the holes to where you go, okay, I need to go and look at certain position coaching or get advice or learn different things, and how people have come out of the woodwork over the years to be able to help me with that, whether it's position coaches, pro players, they've been people that have been able to help me learn more about each of those four positions. And so to have grown an audience from, I've certainly had a ton of help from Football Guys and FF Today before that, and Football Outsiders, all places that I worked, New York Times blog when I did that. So those are entities along the way that have helped me gain an audience for sure. But it's nice to, even from the beginning, it was nice to be able to, there's something about being able to do something as an entrepreneurial pursuit, especially in a field where, frankly, I wasn't a pro football player by any stretch of the imagination, and people or a scout. And so now that I have scouts who get the book, and I've, to be able to say it's the second most purchased publication by NFL personnel people, according to folks like Alex Brown, who's the SMU director of recruiting and has worked with 3 other colleges and knows this. That's a point of
proud
pride.
moment.
So it is. I'm a proud papa of this thing, and
you should be. And Dad, I was going to tell this quick story. Exactly like his tagline, "Pleasantly shocking readers." That's what it was for me. I've been buying the rookie scouting portfolio for a few years now, but I was shocked. And the funny story was, I have a buddy of mine that I play in a home league with, and I'm like, "Hey, I just discovered this guy, Matt Waldman." He goes, yeah. And I'm like, you don't like this guy? And he's like, no. I just was hoping you wouldn't discover him because now I got to compete with you in the rookie drafts, and you're going to have the same info that I do. So that's what it is, and I definitely encourage everyone to go check it out if you haven't already.
Yeah, I love it that it's your work. It's your thing. And right now on Dynasty Twitter, it's just so much regurgitation. There's so much chalk. Everyone's like, hey, they're all rankings are the same. And we had you on last year, and you said Chris Olave was your wide receiver 1, and I mean, man, did he ball out! Like, I absolutely love Chris Olave. You pointed us to your deep sleeper. You hit on Isaiah Pacheco. Like you're digging in there, and you're not just saying, this is what, you're not looking at everybody else's and trying to be the same. It's Matt Waldman's work. It's your RSP. And you can tell that you're not going into different areas trying to get ideas and regurgitate. It's all your process.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you want to get better at what you're doing, you got to make mistakes, but they got to be your own mistakes. I don't know. I respect Lance Zierlein. I respect Dane Brugler, Emery Hunt, or a bunch of people that have draft guides out there, but I don't know how they watch tape. I don't know what their process is. I don't know how they grade players. They show you, in a general way, but I'm not with them day to day and to understand what they're exactly looking at and how they look at techniques and how they value them. Only I can do that. So if I'm going to screw up on a player, I'm going to learn much faster by being my screw up and not looking at someone else and going, well, they had them higher. Let me just see if I can nudge that higher, because I don't really know why they did that. So, I'm going to make big mistakes. That happens. I've had big successes. I've had some big mistakes. I look at Demaryius Thomas and Dak Prescott. Those are two guys in the past that I can look at over a period of time and say, yeah, I missed on those guys. Like, I whiffed. I would say Alvin Kamara is another one that I whiffed on, even though from what I've learned, Sean Payton also didn't like Kamara all that much, and for the same reasons that I didn't. But Kamara turned into probably the Zen master of contact balance that I did not see at Tennessee or at Alabama. So, and then there's players that you're just going to people are going to say you're wrong about, but you don't know until you've really seen enough of their tape and they didn't get to play, like Hakeem Butler or Trey Sermon. And Hakeem Butler's balling out in another league right now,
isn't it? Yeah.
So we'll see if he gets another opportunity.
Back.
Maybe he comes back. Trey Sermon, we'll see if they draft another back and if Rashad Penny can stay healthy. But they've said some nice things, whether that's because they're trying to trade him or they actually mean it. We're going to find out pretty soon. But those are things that, again, that's parcel of it. And I can deal with that, because when you have the Olaves or the Pachecos or the Patrick Mahomes or the Brock Purdy or the Nick Chubb, Justin Jefferson, I've got a good list of guys that, if you're going to say I have some receipts, I've got a good receipt. So
I think that's what's great about you is you're humble about it, you're understanding, and and we try to do that at Smash Accept when we we're going to give you our hits, but we're going to tell you our misses. I feel like everyone in today's culture wants to hide their misses, and I think it's when you have failures, when you have things you miss on, that's an opportunity for growth, like you said, and to continue to move forward. There's a process in Dynasty we do every year, and we talk about this year's class, and then all of a sudden we start to sour on them when we get a little bit closer, right? And for the last 9 months, John and I have been hyping this 2023 class because it's exciting. And now all of a sudden people start to look into 2024 and say, oh, there's only X, Y, and Z special players. And, talk to me a little bit about the class as a whole, because people are really souring a lot of things. We try to pick out the warts of this player, that player. We start to really overanalyze it, and almost like, in 2021, they were like, hey, we want to get 2022 rookies. In 2022, we wanted to move to 2023. Now they're doing the same thing, and they're like, hey, after you get past Jahmyr Gibbs, we need to move into the next class. Talk to me a little bit about what you see with these guys, because it feels deep. I mean, we're doing shows where the second round is getting guys that you would have potentially gotten the first round last year.
Well, I saw John say timeout, and I would say, timeout about trying to get other picks in other classes right
Thank
now.
You.
I would say
that's what we've been saying.
Good to hear that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, because like your top 3 quarterbacks in this class it's a good quarterback class. Could it be a great one? Possibly. If all 3 of those guys hit, it could be a great one. That's all you need. So those 3, that's strong. That's much stronger than last year, where there was really nobody, who you would pick that early.
No comparison.
No. Running back, I think it's 12 deep as guys who can actually be a legitimate fantasy contributor. 12 deep and that's not including guys who you can get later who might develop. So to me, there's 6 guys right now. If they land in the right situation, they could be first-year starters and good ones. That's a strong top of the class. If someone's telling you to forget it after Jahmyr Gibbs, buy into running backs all day long because there's
I guess I'm taking them then.
We're not sharing that. That's just what I'm hearing on other podcasts. That's what I'm hearing in the community. Right. And we're just like, last year we were suggested after you get past like 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, we're a little bit weaker. You get Olave, you get Jameson Williams. But this year's not the same. Like this class is, you alluded to the quarterbacks. And John, I know you and I have been trying to break down that quarterback position quite a bit. And you have some questions with that as well.
Well, yeah. And I think we should kind of look at your number one, Matt, and I think I was just funny because I was when I was reading the RSP and there's all this debate between Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. I was just laughing reading your RSP because a lot of what you were bringing out is exactly how I thought it was, and so tell the listeners here kind of how you broke down Richardson versus Levis, and I think it's going to really help clear the air on these two prospects.
Well, I think the important thing is to start with how I evaluate quarterback prospects in general, because really, the way I do it is this. I have a breadth of talent scale and a depth of talent scale. Breadth of talent is how much a player is shown on tape of what they can do. And that's like a resume bullet point. How versatile are you at what's demanded of the position? Depth of talent is how well you can do it, which means, Deshaun Watson may not be able to do everything Aaron Rodgers can do, but the things that he did well at his best vault him into being a top 5 quarterback when he's at his best. Okay. So I have a grading checklist for breadth of talent that has 98 behaviors for the position. They're defined, they're weighted on a 100-point scale to assess what they show they can do. That's the breadth of talent. Then I chart multiple games of each quarterback with this large matrix of factors. And the matrix goes like this. You get 6 scenarios and all of these different combinations. Scripted and unscripted plays. Every throw, I'm looking at whether it's an unscripted or unscripted play, whether the throw was under pressure, without pressure, whether it was versus man or against zone coverage. So all combinations of those 6 things. Then each of those combinations, I'm grading the degree of accuracy, whether it's pinpoint, like Bill Walsh, not cursing out, but going after Mike Holmgren to saying, when they were in practice one day and Montana threw to Rice and it was just not quite where it needed to be, but Holmgren was like, "That's a great that's a great throw, Joe." And Walsh pulled him aside and said, "No, this is what a pinpoint throw looks like. Everything else is just catchable." So I grade by catchable and pinpoint, and then also look at touch and velocity for each throw in 12 specific zones of the football field. Basically, sidelines, flats, and inside the hash. And also short, intermediate, vertical, and deep, increments of 14 yards. For each of those scenarios, then I use that information to inform my accuracy component for my depth of talent assessment, which is basically how well the player does. I stack rank these quarterbacks in 19 position-specific categories, and then each category has 6 tiers from that I'm projecting is, are they deficient for the NFL or do they have star caliber potential? So these tiers are how well they do things. And then they have several defined criteria points that are designed to categorize basically on a 100-point scale that I come up with my grade. So that's how I grade quarterbacks. So when I look at Anthony Richardson, the things that I value the most from a quarterback are processing speed, decision-making in terms of integrating what you're seeing on the field with how you maneuver in the pocket, with accuracy. And accuracy, is not statistical accuracy. It's my charted accuracy.
That's a key point here too with him.
Yeah. Because Baker Mayfield had insane accuracy. My charted accuracy was, not so much. Because so Zach Wilson, great accuracy. Charted accuracy, not so good. So when I look at Anthony Richardson, his statistical accuracy, not so good. His charted accuracy, really good. And I'm not the only one. There's another site out there that has a database of what they chart. and the guy who only had more drop passes than him was Dan Marino in their database in college.
Wow. Okay.
So
Pretty serious database. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember I had the same thing with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, not accurate enough. Looking at his chart and I'm going, no, more than accurate enough. A lot of drop passes that are catchable. I'm not talking like Larry Fitzgerald catchable. Those difficult catches to me are defined as catches that you shouldn't expect anyone to catch. So, there's a difference there.
I feel you.
So when I look at Richardson integrates a lot of skills that are very hard to integrate as a quarterback. Moving in the pocket, manipulating multiple defenders underneath the safeties. Not the safeties. Everyone can manipulate safeties. If you're a college quarterback, you should be able to do that. Most good high school quarterbacks can do that. It's the flat defenders. It's having to do that while you're moving up in the pocket, in a tight pocket, or sliding outside and doing it, and then firing the ball where you can layer it over the coverage like, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Herbert, those guys do that extraordinarily well. Anthony Richardson shows doing all those things together. When you look at where he has issues, he has some accuracy issues, but there are footwork things that can be figured out, and they're not massive footwork flaws. Where he makes big mistakes, there are things like he hasn't seen enough cover 2 in different variations of disguises or scenarios with pressure where maybe he didn't recognize the cover 2 and he threw a pick 6. That's different than not being able to read the leverage of a defender on a receiver well. Because really the best quarterbacks, that processing speed is about reading leverage. Brett Favre didn't know a nickel until like year 2 in Green Bay. The reason is that he could read leverage. And the Patrick Mahomes, the reason he's so good and makes these greater throws, he reads leverage. The best quarterbacks know that. The coverage part, that's great that you can recite everything on a whiteboard and be like a coach. But if you can't translate that to having the timing to get the ball out confidently when you see when it's time to do it, it doesn't matter how much you know in book smarts. Life smarts is on the field.
So key.
And so teams are figuring that out to a degree. And Anthony Richardson scored high on what's this S2. I don't know much about it, and so I don't want to say it's predictive, but it's a way of them trying to understand what processing speed really looks like. And he scored very high on that. Now, at the same time, when you look at Will Levis has a good arm. He's got the size that you're looking for. He played in a system where you see the 3, 5, 7-step drops. He had an NFL quarterback coach. Now, let me tell you about that NFL quarterback coach, who I'm waiting to hear him curse me out one day because of what I've been saying. But I don't know if he's good or bad, honestly. But I'm intimating that maybe it's not good because Rich Scangarello was the quarterback coach or the offensive guy at Kentucky. Now, I got emails a year before he ever made it to Kentucky from somebody telling me Rich Scangarello comes into X place and I know him and he's telling me this Will Levis kid is going to be as the most pro-ready quarterback ready there. He's not even got the job at Kentucky, but he's telling everyone that he knows this. I'm sure he's not just telling people who work in the restaurant industry or the bar industry. He's probably telling people in the NFL.
Okay.
And why is he doing that? Well, curiously enough, he got a job at Kentucky a year later. And why would he do that? Well, if you can get a bunch of people in the media and scouting to say this Will Levis kid is someone we got to look at. He's apparently the most pro-ready kid, and we have one of our fraternity members saying that this is a good guy. Guess who's going to get a recruiting bump when he gets to Kentucky? Now you've got a pro-ready quarterback. We're going to build a program of these pro-ready players. But the problem is Will Levis, not only is he a beat or 2 or 3 late with a lot of his decision making, not only is he not strong in the pocket, he's not horrible, but he's not particularly strong there. But he also has footwork issues.
Yeah, I've seen the footwork issues. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's like I say this a lot, but the midline of the back foot should be aligned with where the target needs to be placed. The front toe needs to be aligned with where the target needs to be placed.
Yeah, right.
So it's kind of looking like if I can do it kind of looking like this, that's the
Right,
back
I've seen
foot
it.
like
No, I
this,
know exactly what you're talking about.
But what he's doing is the midline of his back foot is aligned with where the target is, not where it's going to be, and the toe is pointed somewhere out in space, and then he's trying to like click them together as he's already getting the ball out, and it just doesn't work. And the fact that you have a quarterback coach in the NFL, and again, most of these guys are teaching scheme and game plan that's on the quarterback to do it. But I would say Scangarello's got his own agenda. Scangarello also has been a coach in the NFL for many years, all of them from Atlanta through Denver and San Francisco. And a lot of them are a series of 1 year jobs.
One and done.
If you're one and done in your industry,
I don't hire those kind of resumes personally.
Yes. So that's the thing. When you look at Will Levis, I don't think he's going to get a chance to be an NFL quarterback. He's going to get he's probably going to get drafted in the first round. If he does, and I'm hoping it's more like last year where all this hype was these guys going in the first round and one of them did. Yeah. And I'm hoping that's the same thing with him. But if it doesn't happen and they buy into all this, then he's going to get force fed. He's going to have moments where he looks good and all the people are going to like the back shoulder throw or the deep ball that he threw that looked good. And all the difficult things that are actually truly difficult, like diagnosing and finding easy solutions in difficult situations, where the difficult thing is actually the check down or the intermediate throw or the moving around in pressure and throwing the ball away or doing all those things. Those are things he's going to have trouble with. And he may get 2 years in this league, but unless he finds an awesome system and he really improves fast and works super hard, he will have to be the exception to the rule to make it in the NFL as a starter. And I don't see it. Whereas with Anthony Richardson, he's that guy that the things that he's going to miss, people are going to go, oh, that was so bad. I knew that was a cover two. How did he miss that? Oh, that was a Matthew Stafford rookie throw where you can't throw that with a guy buried his helmet into your chest like that, and he's tried some of those hero ball throws. But eventually what you're going to see is his skill and nuance for the game is going to outstrip someone like Will Levis by a mile.
I love, a lot of people right now, they're just having those generic statements about Anthony Richardson of, well, he's inaccurate or he's just a running quarterback. And there's nothing behind it. When I listen to you talk, it's like, I just sit back and learn, and that's just refreshing to me. Is like, it's awesome. When we talk about the other two quarterbacks in the class, Richardson has that unbelievable skill set and where he's at. Talk to me a little bit about Stroud and Young and the difference there, and what kind of dynasty perspective you think that these guys do as far as how high of a ceiling they have in the NFL.
I think they both have high ceilings, and I think both could be top 5 quarterbacks depending on the fit with their systems, and most likely they're going to have good fits. Any of those 3 quarterbacks I'd be happy with. I just think Richardson's has the highest ceiling and could be and is the best right now from what I think he will become in the NFL. The best quarterback right now, who will probably have the best first year, will be CJ Stroud, who's my number 2 quarterback. He has really good footwork. He understands the drop back game. He has good play action skills. He doesn't take too many chances that some other players might do with their athletic ability. And he's good in the pocket moving around. So what happens is when you have a solid foundation like that, and you're basically in a situation where you're drowning in new information and you're trying to acclimate against a much better tier of athletes and complexity and savvy. Well, the first thing that goes when you're trying to up your game to that level are the fundamentals that you don't have solid. Yeah. So you're going to see Bryce Young and you're going to see Anthony Richardson to an extent. Both those guys, if they have to learn some new things or they're trying to solidify those things, you're going to see some lapses with their games to an extent early on until they get used to the speed of the game. That's fine. Well, CJ Stroud, I don't think you're going to see those Levises. Those lapses.
That's what we're calling that. Lapses in a quarterback's judgment is a Levis.
That's total. That is.
Let's hope not to see too many Levises.
I'm going to credit the fact that I did this on this show. And that's so mean.
We're going to keep it going too.
But it's great. It's like total lapses, total Levises. Is that you're not going to see as many of those. So that means that he's, when he makes mistakes, they're not going to be as as gross of a mistake on as regular a basis. So I love Stroud for that. He's kind of a Kirk Cousins type,
Okay.
but from the standpoint of like, he's already closer to being there than where Cousins was. Cousins was more of a guy who thought it was like, I'm Brett Favre, but I don't have the body. And then like figured out, oh, I'm not Brett Favre. How do you like me now? So like he's turned into a good starter who's competent but isn't a amazing playmaker that people go nuts about. Young is that amazing playmaker that people go nuts about.
Right.
And to me, he's like that guy on your right shoulder, Dynasty Dad, which is basically Kyler Murray in the sense that he's not as fast as Kyler as a runner, but he's better in the pocket. He doesn't waste movement in the pocket like Kyler does. He also so that he's in a position to make efficient throws off of his movement. And he's been doing that since high school. He has great placement. He really does understand leverage well. He can be a little too risk-oriented or buy too much time and have hubris in the red zone or backed up in his own territory, which can lead to some maturity mistakes in terms of managing the game. But they're not major. He should overcome those. And I think that he doesn't have great footwork, but you're going to use him in a spread offense. You're going to use him pistol. You're not going to ask him to drop back from center a ton. So in that way, a team that drafts him is probably going to let him be him. And I think that's the same as the case with Anthony Richardson as the hope, though there may be some chances, like if he winds up in Las Vegas with Josh McDaniels, who's doesn't have a lot of proof for being a good person to work with as a coach. And people say, well, wait, he worked with Tom Brady. Yeah, but it's more that Tom Brady probably had enough tenure and enough in him to say, just shut up and sit down, or yell, because he yelled at him all the time. You could see him yelling at Josh McDaniels all the time. Yeah. And McDaniels is a yeller and kind of a tear down kind of guy. And Brady's kind of the guy that's going to like, I'm not taking this from you. Like, shut up. I know what I want to do. Like, and they'll yell, and they probably get along fine because they're telling the truth.
Mutual respect,
But you can't do that with a rookie in most cases. So he's more of a tear down guy. And I don't think the offense fits as well as what Richardson could do. So that's kind of how I see all three of those guys.
Where would be a good spot for Richardson? Is there one or two that stick out to you if that happens? Or
I think Seattle would be good for him.
Seattle? That'd be fun.
I think Detroit would be good. They have a good offensive line, and he'd have a chance to sit behind Goff, just like sitting behind Geno. Both of those would be good. I think I'm up and down about Tennessee. There's a part of me that wants to say Tennessee but the offensive line isn't as good as it once was. If it was like Tennessee from a few years ago, I would be excited because with Henry and that offensive line, and I think that he could do a lot with Brown in that play action game. Now I'm not as excited about it, but I can see why there's still a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel for that too.
I know the other thing, I mean, we want to start this class is very good at the quarterback position, and it's very good at the running back position. When we're looking at things, I mean, obviously when we're talking Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, you just drool. I did a podcast last night with Dynasty's Old Time of just how great Bijan Robinson is, and John and I will go back and forth on that for hours. He's got his autographed Bijan helmet back there. But let's talk a little bit briefly about the RB1 and the RB2 in the class, and then let's move on to some of the other guys there.
Well, Bijan's a good worker. That's an important thing. And you've seen that proof, not just from people saying it, but from actually watching his tape, because in 2021, there were some things as a decision maker that he needed to work on. And in 2022, he shored a lot of those things up. So you're seeing a guy who has, the speed, agility, strength, receiving skills, and ability to become a better blocker. And he's not bad at it right now. He just can get better at it for the pro standard. To really become as good of a running back that we've seen from guys like Chubb and Barkley and McCaffrey, different players, McCaffrey, Todd Gurley, guys like that. He could become that. Now, the key is he going to land on a team like Saquon Barkley did, where the offensive line was not good, and he's an up and down producer because he's boom bust, because every running back needs a line unless your name's Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, Gale Sayers, or Jim Brown. So
that's pretty much it.
That's it. Say goodbye. Maybe Earl Campbell in his prime. But that's about it. So Bijan is worth taking number 1 overall. I don't think there's a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
Teams that can use him, they may have to build a little while to get to see the best from him in year 2 or year 3, but I don't have any problem with the team taking him that early if they feel like they can build the nucleus to do it. Jahmyr Gibbs, listen, it took me a while to come around on him, to be honest.
Yeah, I was hoping you would come around on him because I was pretty high. I saw that you started warming up to him.
I did, and so he's explosive. I love the footwork. He obviously can catch the ball really well. His routes are good. They're not as great as people make them out to be. My buddy Jay Moyer, who works over at Fantasy Astronauts, made a really great point recently saying, look, Alabama took him out on a lot of plays where you would expect him to be in if he's that great of a route runner. So he's no Michael Carter as a route runner, even though the Jets may not utilize Carter as the route runner he was because of Zach Wilson. There was some of that there. But Gibbs is a good football player. He's explosive. He reminds me a little bit of Charlie Garner. Maybe not as physical as Charlie Garner, but, to me, Charlie Garner is the guy that you would compare between two Falks. Kevin Falk on the low end, Marshall Falk on the high end. I don't think he's ever getting to Marshall.
Yeah,
he's not Alvin Kamara. I understand that maybe he's quick that like
comp,
Alvin.
We got to stop with that comp now.
Yeah, he can catch like Alvin. He'll run tough through a crease, but there's nobody that has contact balance like Alvin Kamara. Right. And Jahmyr Gibbs, I could think of probably 20 backs who have better contact balance in this draft than him and than Gibbs, or at least equal to it. So good backs, worth getting. Gibbs is someone you want to fit really specifically to a system to really maximize what he does. He's like he's a better DeAndre Swift. And I think people misunderstand DeAndre Swift. Maybe they're coming around a little bit better because DeAndre's a good back, but he's not an all-around player at the level. You wouldn't have Jamal Williams doing what he did if they thought he was an all-around player. So to me, Gibbs is a better version of Swift, but still not quite the all-around player unless he's in the perfect offense suited to his talents.
So sticking with the running back position, we started a network now. We have a second podcast. It's called Smash or Pass, and the way we do that is, it's a dynasty market value kind of thing. Now, for tonight's show, we're going to be with the running backs. We're going to say it's a smash if you're above consensus, or a pass if you're below consensus on these guys, and then tell us why. These are the guys that in our Patreon they want to hear about. Good. One of the guys they want to hear mostly about is Devin A-Chain. So, are you going to smash or pass? Are you above consensus or below when it comes to him?
I'm guessing where I am, so I would guess that I'm below, that I would pass, but I do think that he has the capability of being a lead back in the right system and a productive committee back. I like him, just don't love him.
Now, John, this is one of John's favorite guys from day one, and Zach Evans. Zach Evans, I feel like is very polarizing as far as ranks go. Yeah. Same kind of thing. Are you going to smash or pass on Zach Evans?
Do you have a new button? Because I'm gonna break the button, smashing it.
There we go. All right,
baby.
He is a refined running back, and he's a creative running back. The nonsense that I'm hearing that he's not creative tells me that they watched him at Ole Miss, where they put him as an outside runner and not at TCU.
That is such a mistake on film watching. Yeah, go back a year or two, right?
Yeah, and even at Ole Miss, you can see that he's good at taking bad situations and turning lemons into lemonade. And it's because of footwork, patience, understanding of the scheme, knowing leverage. And I've showed it on Twitter. You can look up Matt Waldman, Zach Evans. I have a thread that's really just showing you nothing but crap gains. But I'm showing you crap gains because the good players turn like awful losses into crap gains. And you need that. That makes you reliable you're preventing losses, and loss prevention is a very important part of running back play. He can catch okay. He's not a great catcher, but he's good enough for checkdowns. To me, he's like a combination of Dalvin Cook and Clinton Portis. I mean, this guy, I think,
love those guys.
I think this guy is a legit running back who, one day, I thought he was a better decision maker than Bijan Robinson. If you took the length of his career, he was a better decision maker. Now, I think Bijan Robinson's closed the gap in his final year. But if you told me 5 years from now that Zach Evans and Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs are the names that you remember with this class, and you put them production-wise fairly on equal ground if they land in the right spots, I would not be surprised.
Okay.
Oh wow, John, you
You
got to
heard
be
it here.
pumped about
Oh,
that.
no, for
you and
sure.
Snoog have been going back and forth about how great Zach
Yeah.
Evans is, and I love that.
I just hope the draft capital comes, and I mean, we don't have to even get into all the
He's going to be a
potential
fourth,
off-field stuff.
he'll
But
probably
yeah,
be a fourth round
rounder.
pick. And the draft capital, the off-field stuff is just silly from what I've
I know.
seen thus far.
Right, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Well, I have another one. I already know the answer to this, but I was also like the highest amongst all the Smash crew on Tajay Spears. And so this is when I said in the intro, I was pumped when I was reading yours, because I was like, I think I'm seeing this on film. It's incredible to watch this guy in the open field, his lateral movement, his ability to hit the holes, acceleration. So talk to me about Tajay Spears. I can't tell you, I was so excited when I was reading the RSP.
He got so excited about it, he didn't even stick with the smash or pass. He's like, Matt, tell me how wonderful Tajay Spears is.
And he's right. Like, I'll smash that one too. I'll probably smash that one pretty hard as well. But and for the reasons that you mentioned, it's no surprise. I mean, John's got a Texas fan, and the guy I comped him to is Jamal Charles.
Yeah, I know.
That's
Jamal Charles.
That's a weighty comp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is he going to beat Jamal Charles? No, he's like a tier away from that. But if it all comes together, there's a possibility. The things that he has in common with Jamal Charles is that he has excellent footwork. He's very creative. He's someone that can be creative in tight spaces. And he understands that the thing I learned from Jamal Charles more than any other back while I've been evaluating running backs is that you can you can be a small back and win between the tackles on a regular basis and hold up between the tackles on the regular basis if you understand how to be the initiator of contact. Because if you initiate contact, you're actually initiating the chain of movement that comes after it. Because as the defender's reacting to the contact that he just took from you, you're making the next move. And if you're quick enough to do that, like a Jamal Charles or a Tajay Spears or a LaShawn McCoy, you win and you get yards and you avoid getting hit hard as much. So Tajay Spears, creative, good receiver. I mean, they matched him up. Go watch the Houston game. Go watch the Houston game where he gets matched up in overtime on a game-winning play against a cornerback.
I saw that play. Yeah.
That's what he can do as a receiver. Yeah, he has 2 ACL tears. That scares people.
Right.
I understand that. Well, you know what? One of the guys that every fantasy GM and every fantasy analyst that I saw on Twitter who was just superb, unbelievably annoyed with for the past 5 years, or for the 5 of the past 6 years, because he just wouldn't retire, was a guy with 2 ACL tears in Frank Gore. So, I mean, if Tajay Spears looks great off 2 ACL tears, I'm okay with taking a chance on him, considering that running backs we consider 3 to 4 years. That's probably their shelf life. And if they're great, maybe they can do 8 to 10 years, but we're not counting on that. We're hoping, but we're not counting on it. So Spears, to me, absolutely is going to, I think, can transcend his size a little bit to be one of the better backs in his class.
John, every time I hear Frank Gore, I think of the Dynasty Dad roast they had
Gore
for me
fantasy.
on my 40th birthday. Or they're in there and they're like, hey, he's the Frank Gore of fantasy, the old guy in the industry. There's 2 more guys I want to talk to quickly. We'll start with Tank Bigsby. I think Tank Bigsby is one that last year this time would have been a lot higher, and now people start to really be sour on him, where I'm seeing him as like RB8 in the class. Some people are saying barely second round, rookie draft capital. Smash or pass on Tank Bigsby?
Everyone who watched him told me that early in his career told me I would smash that, but I'm wound up passing even as much as I wanted to. Just don't think he's a completely mature runner as a decision maker. He tends to bounce things outside that he shouldn't. His footwork, he has a lot of different footwork moves, but he doesn't pair them together in optimal ways. Powerful to a degree, but maybe not to the degree that I expected. He's improved his speed and quickness. That's great. But I think that he's a guy that you look at and say, he's going to contribute in the league. He's even going to have some good games as a starter. He may even have a stretch of a season where he will be a productive fantasy starter, but he's kind of like if you think Chester Taylor went back in the day, or Justin Forsett, or a back who has one good year and then they're looking over their shoulder, looking at somebody else, and they play for a while, and they can help you, but they're not your top 15, top 20, top 25, maybe even a top 36 back every year. That's where I see him more in that bottom end of the top 36 if things work out for him reasonably well.
Yeah, and when it comes to drafting Tank Bigsby, don't force it. I miss those names. The fantasy football names have eased it in there. Like, don't force it. All those different ones. Sean Tucker and Kendre Miller. Let's touch on those two as well. Also, guys that in the Discord, Patreon, they're just like, what about these two guys? Those are, once you get past the top 4 or 5 guys, those are two guys' names that come up a lot.
I'm smashing Kendre Miller because I think he has palpable burst. I think he runs hard. He's smooth and sunny. Reminds me of Lamar Miller in the way that Lamar Miller could have been. He has a little work to do as a pass catcher, but he makes tough catches. So it's just being consistent. He is a good blocker who can get better. He just has to keep his head up. He punches well. He is a sound runner. He's one of those guys I would look at and say, in the right system, he could start this year and be good. Sean Tucker may not be as high as other people on my board, but he has a rotational starter grade for me, which means that in the right system, he could do well. He's in the same tier as Kendre. Well, not in the same tier, but he's just a tier below Kendre Miller. But still, he's in a strong enough tier where I got to say, I don't know what his metrics are. And when you look at Pro Day, there's a big difference between a big plus or minus variance of what really is the truth with their scoring on those things. But watching his tape, there was no back that I was more impressed with how smooth of an accelerator he was.
Yes. That straight line burst acceleration is bam.
Yeah, it feels like Robert Smith.
He's a track star too, right? I think that's he's got that capability for sure.
Yeah, and so for me, I look at him and I think if Donald Brown is what he'd regress to, if he's a better version of Donald Brown and maybe more like what Ryan Williams could have been, then if he really knocks out, he's never going to be J.K. Dobbins, who I think has that kind of acceleration button and a lot of skills. But Tucker could be really good in a game where there's a lot of gap running and a lot of toss outside plays, counter. He's really good with that. He could get better at zone, and I think he will. He's not an elite decision maker, but he's good enough to be good in gap. And a lot of teams are running that now. They need to with these lighter defenses. And I like him. I think he's a guy you might be able to get in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, probably more the 4th and 5th round, because of if there's any indication of the temperature on him. And I think he's going to be a good contributor for a team and then maybe develop into a starter.
I love listening to you talk running backs. Last year you picked out Pacheco as that guy that's completely under the radar. And this year, is there a guy that's under the radar that we're not talking enough about? Because I feel like there always is, and you're one of those guys that picks them out.
Well, there's one that I'll say will likely get a late round pick, and there's one that I don't think is going to get picked, and I like both of them, and so I'll name them. One is Tyon Evans, the Louisville back who came from Tennessee and before that Hutchinson Community College, 5'9", 225, kind of a Travis Henry, Ray Rice build. Someone who can run gap a little better than zone,
bowling
but
ball
he can do
guy.
both.
MJD.
Bowling, you got it. Bowling ball kind of guy. He can run around you, run through you, or run past you. And he's a decent enough receiver and blocker that he can get better at that. Really good movement, So I'm a fan of him. The other guy, no one I know is talking about him, is Christopher Brooks out of BYU, who transferred from Cal. And when you watch his tape, he's 6'1", 235. He was really good at the Hula Bowl this year. He can catch. He's a very good pass catcher. They use him on wheel routes. They use him in the red zone. He can work back to the ball very well. He catches with his hands. He transitions downfield well. But the thing that you know him to be is that he's an earth mover, an old school earth mover who can run through you all 3 levels of the defense to push the pile, but he also has a nifty enough footwork to make that first man miss. He's good in gap. He's good in zone. He's good in wind back plays. You're going to see, and he's not going to outrun, athletic linebackers in the NFL to get 50, 60-yard gains very often, or very often for what running backs do. But he's probably going to be that, singles and doubles hitter, that red zone guy who can be really good. And I can comp him that if he gets an opportunity, he can be a Gus Edwards, Samaje Perine type. If he does better than that, Mike Evans, James Conner could be in that realm of potential if he really exceeds expectations and has more growth than what I would expect.
Guys that are listening right now, Smash Accept listeners, go back. This is the one pod every year I go back when it's done and I listen to it again and I write down the notes. Because, if you listened last year and you got Pacheco in the 5th round and you sold him for a 2nd round pick, that's how winning is done in Dynasty. It's picking those diamonds in the rough. We talk about rounds 3 is 8 to 12% hit rate. Round 4 in Dynasty is even less than that. And when you got quality information from a guy like Matt Waldman, you got to look into that. John, I know I'm going to transition over to wide receivers and let you kind of take over a little bit. But Matt, the one question I have is, last year's wide receiver class was phenomenal. Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Chris Olave. We didn't see it from Jameson Williams, but he wasn't on the field. Dotson, Christian. It was a fantastic class. How does this class rank? And where are the guys like JSN, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, those top guys in this class? How do they stack up? Because I'm seeing a lot of people say, well, it's JSN and then there's nothing else. And there's some guys that I'm falling in love with at the wide receiver position here.
This is the weirdest class I've seen in about 5 years. And what I mean by that is that I have strong grades for really, let's see, I think about 6 or 7 guys. Let's say 8, actually. 8 guys I feel like they're going to be contributors or starters within a year or two, okay? Some of them right away. JSN is certainly one of those guys. Okay. Zay Flowers is certainly one of those guys. But after that, there's a tier 2 of guys who several of them could be better than the tier 1 guys. They have the athletic makeup. They have the big playability. They have the skills in the open field. They either have great routes, but not great hands, or they have great hands, but not quite great routes, and not great athletic ability, but good enough. And if they play to that potential, they could be better than a lot of these guys. And if that happens, but everyone plays reasonably well, now I'm saying that this is a very low end potential outcome, is if it does all come together, it could be the best class that I've seen. But I think it's such a low end potential for that likelihood happening. So it's weird because the guys in that second tier, there's a lot of landmines with all those guys too, because they have trouble with addressing the ball in the proper way that they should. One of them is Quentin Johnston. A lot of people have him as their number 1 or top 3 guy. He's at the top of my second tier of guys. So he's 9th on my board, I think. And it's still a grade that's good enough that you say, look, throw him slants, throw him screens, have him run over routes and crossing routes. He's good after the catch. He's a very good route runner. He's strong. He's fast. That's all great. Now you want him to be a primary receiver against Jalen Ramsey or against some tight coverage corner, and you asking him to run deep intermediate timing routes or win the contested catches and use his size. He doesn't do that very well. He's kind of a Gabriel Davis clap attacker, or or a Robert Meacham clap attacker who, sometimes he makes the play right, and a lot of times it's bookended by drop because it's on him. He didn't position himself well. He clap attacked. He didn't have his hands in the right position in addition to body position, and he made the job much harder and opened himself up to the defender. So those are things that he has to work on, and that's something that he is working on. So if I didn't think he could do it, he wouldn't have even been in my top 15 in my grades.
Okay.
He's already working on it, and he's getting better, but he just doesn't look comfortable with it at this stage. So he's not out of the woods yet. So he's 9th. If he had mastered this, totally just mastered it last year, he would have been number 1 on my board.
Right. Yeah, I felt kind of similarly. Is Quentin Johnston, and that's a good segue here. We're going to play a little more smash and pass with the wide receivers. Sounds like Quentin Johnston would be a pass. He's definitely under the consensus. Let's do a couple more guys. Yeah. And I actually happen to know some of these answers, but for the listeners,
sure.
Smash or pass on Zay Flowers?
Smash. Just because very good open field runner, very good
Yeah.
at adjusting to the football. He gives you a kind of an aspirational Jalen Waddle type of vibe in terms of what his game can be about, and I don't think he's that far away. If he really just like becomes maniacal about working with the game the way Antonio Brown did, he's not Antonio Brown, but he's more like Isaac Bruce, who was just a
Stud.
great player.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
let me just one thing on Zay Flowers. I feel like there's this misconception that maybe it's his size, that he's just going to be a slot guy. But I mean, he played all over the formation when watching him on film. But do you feel like he could play? They could move him around. They could put him on the outside. What's your thought on that?
I do. I think
okay.
he can play all three positions and play return specialist on kicks or punts, depending on what you want him to do. Probably not going to ask him to do those two things, but I think that he will get a chance to play all three positions as his career. He may start with the slot, but they're probably going to continue to expand his game as he gets comfortable.
Okay, let's move on here with smash or pass with these two Tennessee wide receivers. Would you smash or pass Jalen Hyatt, and would you with Cedric Tillman?
I'll smash Cedric Tillman because I think he's kind of a Mike Williams type of player who might be a little bit better than that. Depending on Mike Williams has really come on. So, but Tillman's the type of guy that every receiver clap attacks targets. Let me put that out there. It's just that some do it with greater frequency and more egregiously than others, and it becomes a bigger problem. Everyone has lapses with that because it's hard when you're running at full speed and a ball's away from your frame and a defender's on you to put your hands together and extend.
Yeah.
That's hard to remember to do when you're pumping your arms or you're making a move. And so you're going to have some level of that.
Okay.
But when you have, he can catch with good technique. He can catch with bad technique. He can win the ball in tight coverage. I think he made Jalen Hyatt's job a lot easier in some regards than maybe what people perceive. So I'm smashing him. I'm passing on Hyatt only because, I think of Henry Ruggs, Ted Ginn, guys who were like pure deep threats, but not necessarily great at winning against contact in contested scenarios. I don't know if Jalen Hyatt can do it, but I can tell you that I watched every snap of his last year, and and I can tell you, at least based on last year, I saw one back shoulder play where the defender was within a yard of him. But
right, not a lot of contested catches for that guy.
So I can't. He may do it. He may be able to do it, and if he does, he will be a top. He will be a worthwhile receiver. But until he proves it, I can't give him the credit. So I'm passing.
Okay. I was just going to maybe throw one more in, or Dad, if you have one. But I wanted to hear your thoughts on Marvin Mims. We get a lot of questions on Marvin Mims.
I'm totally smashing that one. I like Marvin Mims. He's I think of two players that I really like that remind me of Mims, and that's for him, Derek Mason is one, and then Santonio Holmes is the other. And he's he's really good at extending for the ball. He's skilled in tight coverage. He can play big, but you can also get him to do well in the middle of the field. He's technically sound. I think he's a wise player. He's I think he can have a long career in the league. He may never be a top 5 receiver, because of how he'll be used. He'll be seen as a secondary guy who can give you primary moments. And that was what Derek Mason was,
Yeah.
And so I think he's good. He's good. I'll totally smash that.
Derek Mason had multiple 1,000-yard seasons. I feel like in the dynasty community, we're like, well, if he isn't top 5 to 8, we're not worried about him. And wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 3s help you win, and that's great to add into their depth wise. The wide receiver position. Once we get, who are some of the guys outside that top 5 to 8 that you see are consistently undervalued? The guys that you would think should be higher up in their values right now.
Xavier Hutchinson is one. I think that he's a solid player who can play flanker, maybe a little bit of big slot. He has great catch radius. He's tough. He's skilled at being efficient with his movement, so he gets yards after the catch. He breaks tackles. He's a smart route runner. I think he's going to have a long career. Jaden Reed may not be undervalued to a degree by the media, but I think the draft day might undervalue him. But to me, he's a Lavernius Coles, maybe a Stephon Diggs starter kit, whose hands issues may knock him down a little bit, but his hands issues aren't that bad. I think they're going to get a lot better. I think he's done well enough that like they're minor things. He's very good with routes. Could get a little better there, but the difference between him being a contributor to top starter right now is his hands just shoring up a little bit, his routes shoring up a little bit. Really good athlete.
Yeah, I like him.
Very tough. Kayshon Boutte, nobody seems to like him because, they think he has an attitude problem. He didn't get to be Jamar Chase. The combine where he had the 29-inch vertical leap and he ran 4.5.
We can all do that.
4.5 speed's fast enough, right? It's fast enough.
Yeah.
4.25 happens to be faster than one of the players I comped him to. Really, both of the players I comped him to. One of them has been a recent All-Pro in the past 3 years. And he catches the ball really well. And they just had a come down because the LSU dropped off a cliff. They blamed a lot of it on him because he had 300 yards in his first game. And they all thought he was going to be like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. And really, when you look at his game, he's a good route technician. He's a gritty pass catcher. He makes the first man miss a lot. He processes the game very fast. And the things that he's immature about are just things that anybody who was going to get played up to be the greatest things to slice bread. And then you have SEC rabid fans saying that you suck. And they question every little thing that you do from like taking a play off here and there.
I think you're right. We swung the pendulum too hard in the other direction.
He compares favorably to Robert Woods and Jarvis Landry.
Okay.
And they both had 29-inch vertical leaps. He plays on the ground. That's his job. He's not playing.
He's a value right now, man. I love.
Yeah, he is a value now. I'm glad that we got to that one.
You don't break out at 18.3, and really have a breakout age of 18.3 and not have those skills as a kid like that, just breaking in.
Yeah, come on.
We talk about, I love how you're comping guys right now because our listeners love hearing that. It's like you can take things to like a philosophical level and really break things down. And then when you're given those comps, it really helps the listeners kind of tie it all in. The tight end position we don't talk about enough. This is a very talented tight end class. Shout out to Meg from the Patreon. She wants to know smash or pass on Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer is someone that, throughout the process, multiple guys on our staff have loved. What do you think of Michael Mayer?
I'm going to explain it this way. I'm going to smash. My rankings may look like pass, but if you actually look at my depth of talent score, it's a definite smash because over the past 3 to 5 years of how I grade tight ends, even though Michael Mayer's ranked lower on my board than most, his grade would put him top 1, top 2, top 3 over the past few classes. He's that good. He's not a man-to-man ball route winner. You're not going to put him against cornerbacks or safeties on a regular basis unless it's in the red zone. But you're not going to put him out there in like Travis Kelce or Kittle or Gronkowski. He's not that type of player. People are going to say that it was last year, it was changed and he was better, but the year before. I saw both years. He's not that player, okay? But he's very good in zone. He's tough. He makes good catches. He's a competent blocker who's going to get better. Solid player. He's just lower on my board, but I'm still smashing it because this is a terrific tight end class.
What's your comp for Michael Mayer? I'm just curious.
Well, people are going to be disappointed by it because they think of fantasy production, but it's like he's more Hunter Henry than he is like any of those other guys I mentioned. Hunter Henry to me is a good, savvy football player who either just didn't get paired with good players or didn't stay healthy. And when he has had good quarterback play with him, his first year, he was really strong. And I think that he can be a little better than Hunter Henry. I'll put it that way. But he's not, Jason Witten, maybe. I don't really love that comp. Pat Freiermuth, maybe he's aspiring to be Pat Freiermuth when Freiermuth's quarterback finally gets there. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, John and I we have Dalton Kincaid as our tight end one. We both love him. Smash or pass on Dalton Kincaid?
Smash. That's exactly where I have him. So he's he's not Travis Kelce as a blocker, but he is in Travis Kelce territory as a runner after the catch, as a route runner, as a receiver. He usually breaks the first tackle or he makes the first man miss. It's one or the other, and usually happens almost on every play I've seen. He is really skill above the rim or outside his frame. He takes contact well. He positions himself really well. I mean, to me, this is a good player whose blocking skills are what people think Kelsey is, but Kelsey's better than this. Just that you don't want most teams understand that you can't have a Gronkowski or a Kittle without them missing half their career. Okay, very rarely seriously. Are you going to have players like that. As Adam Harstead and I talked about it, on my film and data podcast that we do during the season, is that tight ends are a unicorn in the way that people view the position. There's not many of them, and it's hard for them to last. Well, Kincaid's a guy. If you have him stock block, if you have him lead block on counter, you have him be a kind of work on the backside as part of a double team. He's competent enough, or he'll get there. So that's how teams are going to use him, and he's going to be a very good pass catching tight end in the league.
So I haven't asked you this over the last couple of years, but if you're doing a dynasty rookie draft right now, okay, and I got 3 guys that are going in that 10, 11, 12 range, and they're guys that I love, John loves, and from what we've seen that you do as well. If you had to choose between, and it's tight end premium, Dalton Kincaid, Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, and Jordan Addison. If you have to choose between those 4 guys, who's that guy that you just have to have on your team that you think has the best career?
Right now, off the top of my head, it would be between Flowers and Dalton Kincaid. And Same. I would probably give the slight edge to Kincaid.
I love that, man.
John, that's just in first rounds. Yeah, that's what we've been saying is the tight ends do get overlooked, and maybe towards the end of the first round, people need to start thinking about Dalton Kincaid more. And he did get kind of cleared in terms of his injury as well, just this week. So that should make people feel a little bit more at ease about it.
He's more of a long-term bet, but I'm a believer in dynasty building.
Yeah, it takes time.
That anchor players are 1.5 PPR tight ends, quarterbacks, and primary wide receivers. And to me, the closest model to a top end 1.5 PPR tight end. Whenever I'm rebuilding a team, I often trade aging players where I can for mid-career to aging tight ends who are elite. That people go, oh, well, he's going to fall off the cliff soon, and I'm going, no, tight ends don't do that. They have old man game, like Gates, Heap, Gonzalez, Gronkowski. I mean, there's a number of players who were like that they're like they didn't look like they could run anymore, but they post up on guys and get tons of receptions and win in the red zone. It's like I'll take that all day. So
absolutely. It's like you're down at the YMCA and you're running the court and you actually want to find the old guy that still has game. Yeah, he's the guy you want on your team, right?
He looks like a slob. He's got the old sweatshirt.
Exactly.
Sweat pouring down.
That's my guy.
He's got the chrome dome, and if you played him in racquetball or in half court basketball, he's gonna whoop your tail.
Let me school you.
When I was in school, I'll say this real quick. When I was in school and I was in shape, and I used to be in really good shape, I would play racquetball at the bottom of UGA's basketball coliseum, where they had a couple of racquetball courts, old, smelly, like hot sauna type of place. Okay,
I almost smell it now.
But it was fun to play. I'd play after work, and I could outrun people. I had stamina. There was a guy who was like this preacher who was like my age now, about probably a good 30 pounds heavier than I am. Okay. Like I need to lose a little weight, but this guy was a total doughboy. Okay. And just like old Southern man, he knew position like nobody could in racquetball. He would kill me. He would just kill me because he could put the ball exactly where it needed to be. And he knew all the angles so well. And I would lose by like a dozen points, like all the time. And he would play UJ basketball players. And he would whip them. He'd have them running all over the court.
That is hilarious.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dude, that's awesome.
You got to have those old mid tight ends, though. Yeah.
We love this. This is something we mark on our calendar every year. This has been a blast. Like every year, I feel like we just have even more fun when you come on here. We love it so much. Listeners ask for it every year. John and I get giddy like a bunch of kids. We just enjoy chopping it up with you. So a little bit just more about where people can find your RSP. We're going to push it heavy in our Patreon and on Twitter for you because we believe in the product as well. I mean, John talks to me about it all the time. So he's like, he gets me going on it before we even, get to have you on.
Well, I appreciate that you guys do it. Obviously, being an independent business owner and doing this and starting this in a way. I mean, when I first started this, first of all, people said, "How are you going to do this? You never played football and you weren't a scout." And now I told you in the beginning of where that's taken me, and a lot of that's hard work. The first 3 years that I did this, I made $700. That was enough to like maybe make part of a payment on a car, maybe get do some utilities. I'd be okay for the month living basic. I'll put it that way. Back at that time. So first 3 years of doing that, it's come a long way. And obviously this is my living now. But it also meant passing up a lot of opportunities where people were like Greg Rosenthal. I was going to work for him back at NFL when he was at Roto World. And I was going to work alongside a guy by the name of Evan Silva. We were going to work together. And I turned them down twice early in the career before NBC bought them out. And I remember looking in my house after the first 3 years of making $700 and seeing on TV Greg Rosenthal at the halftime of Sunday Night Football and going, well, I better make this work,
I like that bet on yourself.
Yeah, you bet on yourself and you bet big, but that's awesome.
That's what you do. So I'll say this: the RSP, you get a pre-draft, you get a post-draft. The post-draft comes out within 7 days of the NFL draft. I usually put out a cheat sheet, a preliminary one, maybe 2 to 3 days after the draft, just so if you're drafting early, you can see what I'm thinking, even though I might change it a little bit more. But both of those products, they have the pre-draft has a lot of evergreen value. The post-draft, obviously is something that is good for changing things based on fit. So that's really helpful. And it gives you really a great cheat sheet. And you can get it for $21.95 at mattwaldman.com. It's easy to download, but if you do have any questions, and occasionally that happens, sometimes what I think is easy isn't easy for some people. I respond within 24 hours. I'm usually very helpful with being able to get you squared away. And customer service was my field before this. So I take pride in that and making sure that people are straight. And you can get that. You can get I also do projections that do every player in the dynasty sphere for the offensive positions, and I do that. That's $24.95, and you get updates throughout the year in a spreadsheet form, and it shows you by every team with a big matrix of every team, as well as giving you long-term and short-term draft cheat sheets that are tiered for all those players too. So again, that's $24.95. The RSP for rookie drafts, $21.95. mattwaldman.com, and I also give back to a good cause known as Darkness to Light, DL.org. They train people to prevent sexual abuse of children, as well as how to teach them how to address it so it doesn't compound the issues when unfortunately children report it. It is certainly an epidemic in our country and around the world. It's a great cause. We've given over $55,000 since 2012 to the cause.
And John, I know you're obviously one of the biggest fans and proponents. I mean, share with what it's meant for you as a dynasty owner, because I know you've gotten sharper just by you share it with me. You and I talk all the time about it.
Yeah, it really has helped me just going. I mean, it's definitely, some people may just get it so they can have Matt's rankings, but it's so much more than tiers and rankings. You really learn how to study players, how to watch film, what to look for, what to really not consider as important. And that's really helped me become really more of a student of the game. And it's kind of just made me more passionate about the overall sport. And I really look forward to reading the RSP. There's always a few things that I pick up, like, oh, I completely missed that. And just having a guy like Matt that's done it for so long, that it's absolutely legit. So it's really just so much more. Again, you really, like you said, you kind of get shocked when you first see how much is in this thing. It's so in depth. So definitely a huge smash for me to go out there and get that. And I really wanted to thank you, Matt, for coming on. And I do think you should file for copyright on the Levises.
I love that. Like we're going to start using that too, man. That's awesome.
We're going to get that going.
Yeah, that's a funny Freudian slip for sure. That was classic.
I love it, Matt. Thank you so much for coming on, guys. Make sure you follow at Matt Waldman on Twitter. Check out the RSP. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process.